Yeah, Eve, I actually just so I was retreat managing last week as Eve was leading the Belonging and Thriving LGBTQIA plus retreat. We had a really great time, but I was just reading her intro that we sent out to you all, and I learned Eve is a longtime practitioner who has done over 50 silent retreats, so that's pretty impressive. She's also trained at Spirit Rock and in mindful self-compassion in addition to mindfulness and Dharma teachings, Eve is also a musician and shares the Dharma through music often. I don't know if we'll get to experience any of that today, but regardless, yeah, really appreciate all of the heart that Eve brings to the practice. Um, and yeah, I think I'll go ahead and turn it over to you now.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank
being
you,
here, everyone.
Andy. Um, well, hi everyone. It's really nice to be here with you. It's always a joy to be here with Big Bear affiliated community. And then, as Andy was saying, I was just there, just on the land last week to co-lead an LGBT retreat with my dear friend Lev. Um, and so I just got back Sunday night from that and uh, settling in, still feeling the glow of the beautiful Sangha and then the wider Sangha of the land. Gorgeous. If you haven't been up there yet, highly recommended. Pine trees. Right now there's sparkling snow on the ground. Yeah, it was a great experience. One of the talks that I gave during the retreat was on joy, and I wanted to talk about that today. And I see maybe some of you were on the retreat. This is that some of those same ideas and then some expansion about the importance and the necessity of deliberately cultivating joy, even now, even when we are all got endless things to do, and life can be very challenging, especially now. Cultivating joy. So I'm mentioning that now because I'm about to lead us in a guided meditation practice, which will be primarily mindfulness. I'll give some mindfulness instructions and then some silence. And then at the end, I'm going to offer a gratitude reflection from teacher Christina Feldman, brief. And the reason that I'm doing that, and as I'm thinking about joy, is that deliberate gratitude is one of the practices that keeps us connected to our joy, our distress, our hypervigilance, um, our threat system. They want to keep us focused on what's not working, and gratitude can kind of open up our heart a little bit and our senses a little bit more. So, bringing in gratitude practice at the end of this little 20-minute sit isn't meant to deny or bypass or minimize the challenges. Rather, it's meant to nourish and replenish and offer some contact with the good. Okay, so off we go. A little 20-minute sit. So maybe just beginning by seeing the Sangha here in addition to whatever else you're seeing around and beyond your screen. But this is a community of caring individuals on a similar path to yours in some ways. So just seeing and feeling that. And maybe taking some deeper breaths if you wish. Allowing your eyes to close if that's comfortable. And it's always fine to open your eyes at any point. Practice isn't relying on closed eyes. Just do it to simplify the field. A lot of input through the visual field. And feeling your body in contact with the surface beneath you, the chair, the cushion, the bed, the couch, the floor, wherever you are. Feeling that connection, that little place that lets you know that that sense of pressure or vibration or temperature that lets you know that your body is in contact is like a little portal into interbeing, a little reminder that we are supported by the earth, we are connected with the earth and everything on it. We belong. We're part of the fabric of this universe. So just feeling that connection. Don't have to analyze it, just rest in it and the direct experience of it. Feeling gravity, just the earth's way of holding your body close. And then within your body, if it's comfortable, noticing the movement of breath, wherever that's sort of most predominant. It could be for some of us, it's the nostrils, the throat, the chest, the belly, or some combination of all those things. Inhale and exhale, and noticing sensations of breathing. And as you're here with your body, if you notice any places of sort of often unconscious holding, many of us can notice that in the eyebrows or the jaw, the shoulders or the hands, places in the lower body too. If you do notice any places of kind of habitual holding, they're welcome. We don't have to make them go away, and we can offer some softening around them. And this is a practice in returning to a way of knowing that is in the present moment, embodied, non conceptual, non judgmental. This is innate to us and has been clouded over by a long history in humankind, and specifically in Western mainstream culture, of really relying on the thinking mind, which is one way of knowing. We're cultivating access to this other kind of intelligence. It's here in the present moment. And the way we do that is with infinite kindness, because the thinking mind has a lot of momentum, has a lot to say, it wants to help. So we hold it with much kindness, and when it draws us away from the present moment, we hold that as a natural phenomenon, not a problem. And when we notice and come back to present moment, feeling body and breath, hearing sound, being in the here and now, when we notice we're back, we can celebrate that moment of returning, the sacred returning to here and now. So that even in the midst of a practice like this one, or in the midst of a day, anytime we return to the here and now, we can cultivate a sense of celebration and gratitude for this deepening capacity to be with life as it's unfolding in each moment. Just this much, just right now. Practice is often noticing we're lost in thought and returning again. And if we can hold this practice in warmth and kindness, then we're cultivating the other part of practice, which is infinite compassion. Okay, beautiful. And in these last few minutes, I'll offer some phrases of gratitude. Just let these flow through, and always, with all practice, trust your own inner wisdom for what serves you, and what resonates, and let go of what does not. Amid all the challenges of life, remember the many blessings that sustain us. With gratitude, remember the many people who have supported and sustained us through our lives. With gratitude, remember the moment of beauty and liveliness of the natural world. With gratitude, appreciate whatever measure of health we have. With gratitude, remember the generosity of others, including the more than human world. With gratitude, remember whatever measure of safety you have in this moment. And with gratitude, remember our capacity to touch the lives of others with care and love. And we'll sit together for just another minute before I ring the bell. And in this last minute, simply allowing yourself to be just as you are and your experience to be just as it is. Thank you for your presence and for your practice. All right. So I wanted to speak today briefly about joy, just to remind us all that that there is an incredibly important nourishing value to it, and that we can deliberately practice it. Those two things. We don't have to wait for it to land in our laps, although sometimes it does, thank goodness. We can practice it on purpose, and the function that it serves in terms of our pursuit of freedom and peace for ourselves and others. So I want to start with a quote and a little story from my own life. This quote comes from Dr. Barbara Holmes. She recently passed away at age 81. She was a civil rights activist and a prolific author and teacher, meditation teacher too. She said, "Our current circumstances require resilience, and we need the steadfast belief that joy is a healing inner event and a spiritual practice." We often think of joy as like the cherry on top, and we won't bother with that because we're so busy and life is so demanding. And it's not what it is. Joy is not the cherry on top. Joy is much more a foundational, nourishing energy. And the Buddha spoke about this as well. And I'll say more about that in a minute. But for me, having learned the essential nature of joy and not to disregard it or minimize it in my life, my mom is declining with dementia. We're figuring out how to get her to age at home, which, as you know, if you have aging parents, is very challenging. But it's what she wants. She has a cat and a garden and friends and family who love her. And there are periods of time where I need to go stay with her. We have caregivers who come in, but periods of time where I need to go stay with her for weeks at a time and figure it out. And it can be very challenging. Enough said. It can be very challenging. And so what I have learned is that when I'm staying with her for a long time, that even though it's hard to do, I need to take some time, at least one evening a week, and ideally and often more than that. So during the course of the week, I'll do a little short hike up the hill and things like that. And then one evening a week, I'll go off to see a friend, or I recently went to a bookstore for a few hours, just to replenish myself with the things that I love. And what I found, and what the teachings suggest, and what I suggest that you look for yourself as you begin experimenting more with deliberate joy, what I've found is that it offers even just a little bit of joy, of authentic joy, offers a complete refueling, refilling of a depleted system. And that's a powerful thing to know and utilize for the sake of all beings. We turn to joy not out of escapism or selfishness, but as a way to sustain our long-term practices around compassion and courage and presence. So I invite you just for a moment now to consider, are there certain ways that you are already intentionally bringing joy into your life? Just think about those things. It could be like your coffee in the morning, or walking your dog, or working in your garden, chopping your vegetables for dinner, spending time with friends, the way in which you get into nature, the way in which you exercise. But just think about things that are already innate in your life, that if you frame them with this question, is this a joy practice? You could honestly say, yes, it is. And then hold those in the light as something that they're not just a passing phenomena. They're really, really important. And there may be other ways too that you're bringing in joy on. There are so many different In fact, I would invite you, if you want to just put in the chat, what are some things in your life that are already embedded in your life that bring you joy? And I'll keep talking because I don't have that much time, but I'll read them out loud in a moment. So when the Buddha speaks about joy, there are different words that we can translate into joy or happiness. Um, One of the words that you may have heard is the word mudita. So the Buddha teaches the four heart practices: loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And that third one, appreciative joy, is understood to be the joy in others' joy. And it's a really potent and powerful source of joy. When we see a dog wagging their tail and we feel the joy of that happy dog, we are, just as we can sympathize or vibrate with people's pain, we also can sympathize and vibrate with their joy. So you're outside and somebody is walking by with a stroller and the baby smiles up at you. The baby's joy is contagious, and we feel that and we resonate with it. So mudita, or appreciative joy, is a really beautiful and powerful way to gladden our own hearts. And it's really helpful to know that the proximate cause of appreciative joy, according to the Buddha, is our own joy. We need to already have access to joy in our own lives so that we can recognize it and celebrate it in others without going to envy and deprivation, which is a place many of us go. I've gone to endless times in my life. Comparing mind, all these things that are not, they actually increase our distress, not our joy. So for us to access appreciative joy, we need to already have traveled the terrain of our own joy to some degree, or at least know the territory and know how to access it. So that's what I want to focus on in these next few minutes is, how are you already accessing your own joy? And then how can we together as community on this path toward freedom? And by freedom, I really mean inner freedom and freedom for the world. And yes, we're on it for the long haul, but that's the journey we're on. So I want to see what you're saying here. Thank you for those of you who wrote in the chat. Thanks for all that's been said and unsaid. Let's see here. Okay, how do you access joy? Breath, singing, yay, being in nature, talking with my daughter, spending time with good friends. And as you're hearing these, just see which ones you vibrate with, which ones are like, oh yeah, me too. Looking at my trees outside my window, spending time with my son Jack, morning walks at dawn, hiking, time in nature, birds, walking through the neighborhood or through nature, playfulness with loved ones, sunlight on my back, long exhales, group hikes. Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone. So these are some of the ways we are finding joy in our daily life. And it's very helpful to think about how we can, first of all, lift these up and really appreciate these joy practices for what they are, which is sacred practices of refueling and refilling. And then also consider not only how we can deepen those, which is a good idea to make time for those, and then also how we can expand our joy practices. There's a German proverb related to sharing our joy. So when we're like with friends or a pet or family or that kind of thing, the German proverb is, shared pain is half the pain. Shared joy is twice the joy. Shared pain is half the pain. Shared joy is twice the joy. So whether you're sharing it with actual living beings or with the wider living world and nature, sharing your joy and being in community or harmony with your joy is part of what expands it. I kind of think of joy as breathing in, and because it's so important to nourishment. If we think of compassion as the exhale, the way in which we bring care to the world, presence, courage, and also the way in which we bring care to our own systems and our own hearts. We're our own primary caregiver, and that's part of why compassion shows up as sort of the number one heart awakened heart practice in Buddhism. The two wings of compassion or wings of wisdom are wings of freedom are wisdom and compassion. Compassion shows up as essential. And with every exhale, we can sort of imagine ourselves offering nourishment out to the world, and then we also need to be replenished. So I think of joy as the inhale. Exhaling care, love, service, self-care, self-compassion. Inhaling joy. And we get replenished. So we need to cultivate on this path both compassion and joy. The teaching from Buddhism is that the antidote to compassion fatigue isn't pushing forward with more compassion. The antidote to compassion fatigue is joy, because typically what we're low on when we're experiencing compassion fatigue is spaciousness and joy. So we can access joy through active activities, like you were mentioning beautifully here. And we can also access joy through the pause, the taking a pause, a moment, 5 minutes with our tea, or a daily practice, or that time of calming and soothing also can allow for accessing joy. In Buddhism, it's called sacred stillness. And Karen Walron, the person that I quoted earlier just now, the one who said, "I will never apologize for embracing joy and beauty, even when the world is falling apart, because joy and beauty are my fuel for activism." That's actually, this is a second quote. But she talks about the pause with a cause. The pause with a cause. When we take this time to disrupt our busy to-do list with some moment of pause, we're also accessing that joy of replenishment, of refilling. It's another way to do it. David Trelevin, in his book Trauma Sensitive Mindfulness, says resilience can involve purposefully turning our attention toward what brings us energy and joy. So I want to just take another few minutes to talk about some practices that can help us, some deliberate practices. There's a Chinese proverb, "If I keep a green bough in my heart, a singing bird will come." And the green bough is practice, is a deliberate bringing in, and the singing bird in this case is joy. If I keep a green bough in my heart, a singing bird will come. So all of these joy practices are practices that allow us to take in the good and be nourished by the good. So the first one offered by the Buddha is integrity. This feeling in alignment with harmlessness and kindness. The Buddha said, "A deed is good that one doesn't regret having done, that results in joy and delight." And I don't know about you, but when something floats through my consciousness that I have remorse about, that hurts. It hurts. It's dukkha. It's suffering. It depletes my joy. It depletes my well-being entirely. And so when we're at a choice point about, am I going to choose stinginess or generosity? Am I going to choose patience and restraint, or am I going to choose reactivity and rage? Those choice points, having a sense of our own integrity and consciously in those moments inclining toward our integrity supports what the Buddha called the bliss of blamelessness. This possibility of the ease and peace and joy that comes from being in touch with and in alignment with your naturally good heart. So that's one practice, and mindfulness really supports that because it allows for more and more awareness in the moment. We need to also have a lot of self-compassion and patience because there can be a lot of momentum with the parts of us that have learned to protect ourselves with reactivity and to get our needs met by taking what's not given and all that kind of stuff. A lot of patience and self-compassion as we move and incline and turn toward our own integrity. And then noticing that when we do choose that, how great it feels. Well, one of the Buddhist teachings is generosity. And the Buddha said, if you knew as I do the power of generosity, you wouldn't let a meal go by without sharing it. And that seems like a tall order. And when we align with generosity, which is one form of integrity, wow, the way it feels inside, what it does for a sense of spaciousness and peacefulness. And you just check it out for yourself. So that's the first. The second that I want to suggest is a practice that was recently coined by trauma specialist Janine Fisher as the practice of looking for glimmers. Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. We know triggers open up in ourselves all troubling, traumatic, often memories and feelings. Glimmers are the opposite. They're little things that we can miss, in our busyness and our focus on what's up in our face or what we're worrying about. Glimmers are little things that we track in the present moment that kind of open up our joy. So little things that come in through the five senses or even through the thinking mind, a memory coming through that can open us up to the joy. And to illustrate this, I want to share with you a little poem by W.S. Merwin called The Present. As they were leaving the garden, one of the angels bent down to them and whispered, I am to give you this as you're leaving the garden. I do not know what it is or what it's for, what you will do with it. You will not be able to keep it, but you will not be able to keep anything. Yet they both reached at once for the present, and when their hands met, they laughed. So there's this way in which when we're in the present moment, that in itself is like a miracle. To be here now, we can immediately begin to touch into how insane is it that we're here at all. And then also in the present moment are often available these little beautiful things, as Mary Oliver said, the prayers that are made out of grass that we can be nourished by. Someone once asked an old monk who had been practicing all of his life, why did he practice? Why did he devote his life to mindfulness and compassion? And his response was, so that I can really see the little purple flowers by the side of the road. Really being nourished by this miraculous, impermanent life and the way in which blessings present themselves, and we may miss them unless we're here to receive those glimmers and be nourished by them. So you can set yourself, just as you can set yourself to incline toward integrity, you can set yourself to incline towards being on a treasure hunt for glimmers, which is highly supported by mindfulness in daily life. And I'm just going to mention a couple more things briefly, just because of time. Another practice is to know what you love. Rumi said, sometimes you hear a voice through the door calling you. As a fish out of water hears the waves, come back, come back. This churning toward what you deeply love saves you. So we're not necessarily conditioned to know what we love. And so we need to, kind of begin to experiment and look and collect, have a little collection of, oh, yes, yes, yes. I love dogs. I love camping. I love cooking. The list could be endless, but begin to collect that and honor that in the same way you honor the things that are bringing you joy in daily life already. And then the final practice that I want to offer to you today, we've got integrity, glimmers, what do you love, and then also gratitude, which we started with. The English word for gratitude comes from the Latin word gratias, which is also the source word for our English word grace. And St. Francis of Assisi said that an intentional gratitude practice allows us to take in the grace that's coming to us. We open to it, otherwise, we don't see it. We open to it with gratitude practice. So I text my sister at the end of every day 3 things that I'm grateful for from the day, and she texts me back. Some people keep gratitude journals. Just a gratitude practice where you name 5 things you're grateful for at the end of the day. But try that for a week if you don't already have a gratitude practice, and then see how it begins to affect your sense of well being and peace. See how you're nourished, replenished, and refilled. And I'll close with a quote from Maya Angelou. If you must look back, do so forgivingly. If you must look forward, do so prayerfully. However, the wisest thing you can do is be present, in the present, gratefully. Thank you for your kind attention. And we do have a few minutes. I would love to hear from you about how any of this landed, any discussion, um, any questions. Yes. Great. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you very much for today. I always love your teachings, and I'm really sorry I missed the week in Big Bear. And I hope to find out when your next retreats are going to be because I want to sign up. So if you have any idea when they are, I can't go to the South, but I'd like somewhere in California maybe.
Yeah.
Not wait till the end of the year at Spirit Rock. But I'm going through grief still,
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to find joy right now, and I'm
Yeah.
not finding joy in the things I've noticed in my journals. I don't want to go to movies. I don't like my friends. I'm
Yeah.
getting, I don't, the whole aging thing, all this stuff
Yeah.
is going on, and I'm trying to find 3 things at the end of the day to be grateful for. And I just every day I'll say my trees, my health, and my house and my family.
Mhm.
But it's just like it's really hard. It's still, and I just kind of want to I'm doing the meditation every morning. It's like I want to get Rolf to get it out, just like
Yeah.
have somebody do it for me and just stop this already
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
really interfering with my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. So yes, if each day you're grateful for your trees, your health, and your house, that's enough. That's enough. Those are beautiful things. You can consider each one of those community members angels hovering around you with love. And grief has its own trajectory and it's excruciating. So just to name, yes, you're in it, it hurts, and you're not alone. And really grief needs a special kind of tending, just like a lot of radical kindness. And so I recommend, I can't read it aloud now because of time, otherwise I would, but I recommend the poem Kindness by Palestinian American poet Naomi Shihab Nye. And hold all these pain, it needs to be held in deep kindness, allowing it to be there, because part of the thing that we do with grief is we're like, oh, hell no, I do not want to feel one more day of this. And it's there anyway, it has its own trajectory. And so, warmth, kindness, self soothing, self compassion, and then The Buddha said patience is a supreme virtue, just like amazing patience. Yeah. And I don't know what I am teaching at Spirit Rock at the end of the year for sure, and for 2026. And before then, I'll just, if you're on my mailing list, which you are, Susan, thank you. I'll just keep you posted when I'm doing another retreat. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for the
very much.
question. It's for the sake of all of us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Maiko.
Hi, Eve. Hi, Andy. So good to see you. Everyone else on the call, I was at said retreat these past few days. I'm on what, day 3 of reintegration. I'm so happy to be here with you again. And I find I'm having a much harder time reintegrating than I usually am. This is like the hardest landing I've ever had.
Mm,
And I feel like I remember we talked about the like compassion backdraft and like the more
yeah.
compassion you try and give yourself, like you may experience even more resistance and to just like
Mhm.
meet that with compassion. But
Yeah.
I'm finding that the response I'm getting from myself is like if you give me one more word of compassion, it's just like the more compassion you give me, the more angry I'm gonna get kind of thing. And I'm wondering how to navigate that and also like any like phrases that might be helpful to use in moments like that.
That's great. So the way the Buddha talks about mind states, resistance, anger, all of them actually, the good ones too, is that they're impermanent and not self, which means that this experience that whatever experience any of us are going through is impermanent and it's not who we are. So what that means is we can turn toward it with curiosity and care, knowing that it's an energy running through us that deserves compassion and care, and it's not who we are. And we can really kind of locate ourselves in a wider, spacious, awake awareness. And that's where mindfulness is leading us to. So I'm just mentioning that because it's possible to kind of put some space around the anger and go, I get it. I get it. You know, of course you're angry, you know, and just that kind of compassion, like not a general compassion, but a very specific to the energy and to the energy compassion can be helpful. Also, what else that people don't talk about a lot that's in the suttas, and I did mention this on the retreat, but just to remind you, the Buddha does teach about wise distraction. And that when we're outside of our zone of tolerance, that's not the Buddha's language, but basically pointing to this idea that when we're outside of our zone of tolerance, often it's not about direct action. It's not about, oh, turn toward it with compassion, hold my, bring mindfulness in, come to the present moment. It's about, oh, yeah, let me go, take a walk, let me do a crossword puzzle, let me just take a minute for the system to just rest without inflaming it with engagement. Yeah, so those are two things. One is the coming back to that wide spacious presence. It's called awake awareness or loving awareness. And I'll leave you with one last thing. Sometimes for me, and this may or may not work for you or people here, but this is a question that comes out of Mahayana Buddhism. Sometimes it can be helpful to access that spacious awake awareness with the question, what's happening right now if there's no problem to solve? And then just let the energies be part of nature. Don't have to fix anything. Just this spacious letting be. Yeah. And just a lot of care for you. Definitely coming back from retreat can be rocky.
Thanks,
Thank you
Eve.
so much for being here, Michael. It's great to see you.
There's a couple questions in the chat. I don't know if you're able to answer any of them briefly. I can read them aloud.
Oh, thanks.
The first one says, what's the difference between joy and happiness? And the second one says, is learning to love yourself tied into all of this?
Joy and happiness are often synonyms, and we can use them that way. And in fact, the word joy often doesn't work for people. It's got too much connotation of wee, and so happiness can often be a better word. It kind of has its semantics, and it kind of has to do with, and they're on the same spectrum. So, in my understanding of it, there are different words in Pali that the Buddha uses, and the word that we translate as happiness is a different word than the word we translate as joy. But they're all in the part of sort of the gladdened, uplifted, opening heart. So I would say, for our purposes, find the word that works for you and choose that. Work with that. And yes, 1,000% joy and compassion and mindfulness are related to self-love. 1,000%, because when we're talking about awakening, we're awakening within these bodies, hearts, and minds. This is the first territory we're dealing with, these bodies, hearts, and minds. And if we are not holding these bodies, hearts, and minds in unconditional love, which almost no one is, really, like almost no one is, like the epidemic of self-criticism, self-denigration, self-hate is through the roof. So our work needs to always include the parts of experience that we call self: the body, the emotions, the mind, the ways, the patterns, the way in which we behave in the world. And it's hard, but if we can even make a little headway with loving this stuff, it immediately translates into loving everything else. It's all one. Yeah. Thank you for the questions. Alrighty. Oh, I see Devlin's dog. Devlin was on our retreat too, and Doggy wasn't feeling well, but clearly he's okay right in the moment. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Andy, thank you so much.
Of course, my pleasure. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just stop the live stream here.